What's up, everyone? Just gonna wait for some people to get in here. All right. Oh, come on. Trying to get the live dashboard. Okay, now it's working. All right, so also one thing is over at the Discord server, I made a new channel called YouTube Live Chat, and if you guys want to chat in there instead of the YouTube chat on the side, which is kind of small and it doesn't save all the messages, so if I scroll up, I'll miss some of them. If you guys want to join the Discord server and chat there, you can do so. I'm just gonna wait for maybe a minute or two until more people come in. And today, today's video, even though it's a live stream, I'm still doing the live stream tomorrow where I do the portfolio question and answer reveal plus the portfolio, the normal question and answer reveal from that week to this week's videos, and then also the portfolio review. That will happen tomorrow. Although I am still going to do some portfolio reviews if anybody wants to submit a super chat, and that way you can kind of expedite your process. A super chat, of course, means you're paying me in the YouTube chat. There's like a little super chat option with the money sign. Yeah, that's me trying to make money. But anyhow, okay, 102 watching. Wow, let's go ahead and get this started then. Where the hell am I at? Let's see here. To figure out what I need to toggle off. Sweet, there we go. All right, so as you can see, as I mentioned before, we have the Discord server right here, and the link here is in the description of YouTube. You can join, and yeah, you can chat here if you want instead. And then also, if you do submit a super chat so that I review your portfolio at the end here, at the end of this little design follow along that we're going to do in a second, then in the description or the message of your super chat, mention your Discord username, and then go to portfolio submissions and then just submit your portfolio URL here, and I will review it at the end of our little UI design follow along thing. All right, so I'll leave this up here, and yeah, let's get started. So today, let's see here. Oops, wrong thing. I have Visual Studio Code open here. Today's topic is designing a dark themed UI / dashboard. All right, it's kind of a niche topic. It's obviously in the design end of things when we're talking about full stack dev. And we're not going to be doing any HTML or CSS. We're just going to be working specifically in Adobe XD. And I'll be talking about some of the core, I'm going to try to talk about some of the core fundamentals of, what it takes to design something that's effective in the sense of a dark UI theme design. And a lot of these principles that I'll be talking about, if some of you who follow this channel, I'm going to sound like a broken record, and they're also applicable to almost any type of UI design, not just dark theme, but that's going to be the focus for this. So now when I say design follow along, I'm just encouraging those of you who want to get better at design, open up Adobe XD or Experience Design if you have it. If you don't, you could still follow along. I mean, if you're using Figma, if you're using Sketch, the tools are just going to be different, but the end result, aesthetically, you can easily go ahead and recreate and just follow what I'm doing, and trying to follow along with the principles that I'm going to be teaching here. So, dark theme. All right, so let's get started. First, when it comes to these, if we're talking about Dribbble or Behance and you're showcasing your UI designs, a common theme that I'm seeing is they'll take the actual UI design. Let's say, for instance, you don't have to follow along at this part. You have a header up here, the full header. Let me just, I don't know, we'll make it red or something. And then you have your content down here, and it's just spanning the full width of your artboard. A common theme that I'm seeing is they'll take this whole design, and just for presentation purposes, they'll take the whole UI design and just kind of scale it in, and then apply a little, like maybe like a background color. Maybe that's supposed to emulate, I don't know, a desktop or something like that. And that helps just to showcase what the design looks like. That's what we're going to do. All right, so the background for this, for a dark UI design, and by the way, this is real important. I meant to mention this earlier. I'm going to try to really separate my train of thought into two different sections. The first is going to be subjective, and the second is going to be objective. So when I give advice, some of it's going to be subjective, and that's the type of stuff I'm going to try to stay away from, because when it comes to design, there's a lot of subjective choices. So what do I mean by subjective? Well, it means there's no concrete right or wrong in terms of that design decision that you're making. So there's a lot of subjective stuff. The parts that are really important for you to get right is the objective stuff, the stuff that is almost black and white in terms of what is right and what is wrong when you're making UI design decisions. So I'm going to really try to remember and keep that at the forefront of my mind to help you guys get better and ultimately be able to make UI designs that look, like the top, pros that, the stuff that they're making. So for the background, this is kind of subjective. It's a subjective topic. And there's an element of it that is objective, though, and I'll discuss this. So for the background, the part that's objective is if you have to ask yourself, is this going to be more of a light themed website or UI design, or is it going to be dark themed? In this case, where we're doing this sort of like, I would say it's not even a part of the design, it's just kind of showcasing the design. It's not too entirely important, but if we're going to have a dark theme UI design and we're going to have a background to place that design on top of, then we want to have it contrast a good amount so that we can really see the UI design itself. So that's the objective part. That is, make sure that you have a contrast between the foreground and background element. So for a background, we could do a solid color. That's fine, because the part that's going to be overlaid on top of this is going to be the dark UI. So it wouldn't make sense probably to make it black, because the dark UI will be on top of that. You want it to contrast well. So what I'm going to do is do a linear gradient, and this is kind of like a little bit of a trendy thing. So when I take this linear gradient and we'll make it more of like a 45 or 35 degree angle, this is actually pretty close to what I want already. I think we'll give it a little bit of color. So if I just come over here in the blue area and drag this over just a bit, we can see how the left part is, we have a little bit of blue in there, and that's fine. So it's a really desaturated, darker blue. And we'll take this other color pick over here, down here, and we'll get that blue area in there as well. And maybe we can just make it a little bit lighter. So this is kind of just like a midpoint between, black and white, and this will help frame the actual UI container. So let's do that. I'll take the rectangle tool, and we'll just drag out an area right around here. Okay, cool. Now, this is going to be dark themed, right? So we're going to get rid of the border, and instead of making this white or light, we're going to make it darker. Now, you could go 100% black. By the way, I'm going to make sure I'm paying attention. We have 180 people watching. Awesome. All right. We could go black, but more often than not, when it comes to darker UI themes, I like to go a little bit above black. And that way, if I need an absolute black element, I'll be able to put that in the UI somewhere. So somewhere maybe right around here. The color code for this is 262626. Just like that. Okay. All right. So like I mentioned, we're going to be designing a dashboard element of sort. But of course, this could be like a landing page or a hero section. Obviously, we're not going to be designing a ton of stuff. It's going to fit within this frame that we have here, kind of like a desktop resolution. And so we'll get started here, and we'll make this pretty conventional. I mean, we're going to have a logo up here with a navigation up here to the right. Pretty standard stuff. So for the logo, I'm just going to take the type tool, and we'll just type in web service, all caps. All right, I'm going to use my favorite font, Montserrat, once again. And you can download this. That's from Google Fonts. And so now I want to talk about, let's see here, contrast. All right, so you have to ask yourself, when you're trying to place in contrast, when we're talking about a logo, we also have to think about priority and prioritizing our content in terms of importance. And in your logo, that's kind of an important thing. At the same time, you don't want it to be massive. You don't want it to be the first thing people really see and really strikes them. Usually you want that to be like a sub-headline or the most important content that's a part of that particular page. For a logo, though, you do want it to stand out for the most part. So, you know, taking it white, you really can't go wrong. Let's make this bold as well. Like that. And especially when you're dealing with smaller type, going bold doesn't hurt, especially if it's just like a single logo type element. If it's a large block, like a paragraph or whatever, you usually don't want to go bold. So let's get this positioned over here. I'm gonna, just for the heck of it, I'm going to do a real quick symbol, just so it looks like a typical, you know, combination logo where you have a symbol and then the word mark to the side of it. So I'm just gonna take this. Actually, no, we'll use the pen tool. I don't know. We'll do this, and we'll get rid of the stroke. Here's where we're going to talk about color. So when you have, and this is pretty much, this isn't specific to dark UI stuff. When you have a design here, and you're just starting out, and maybe you don't know, maybe you're working from scratch, and there's not what's called, you know, a design system or a visual identity design system in place yet. Then you have to come up with the colors and the color theme on your own. So when it comes to, you know, like a dark UI theme, you really want to have, I would say, preferably one, no more than two different colors that really stick out, like the accent colors. So we're just going to have one accent color and something that really sticks out and gives this, you know, this otherwise dark and kind of just, it would be otherwise mundane and monotone sort of appearance. And you want to make it, this accent color, really give it color. All right, so you're going to want to choose something that's of higher saturation in terms of color, and also something that's bright. So we're working up here in the color picker section. So this could be red, although usually red on black, I don't really like it often. You could choose a real, when it comes to 2018 trends, I think we're seeing a lot of purple being used. So screw it, we'll stick around with the, we'll stick right around in the purple area. And then we'll add this to the color swatches so that we can use this again. All right, so we can already see now, if we're looking at just the elements that we have already, we have this little background showcase, you know, color that's really not technically part of this UI design. We're just kind of using it to feature this design here. Like for instance, if there was a browser, it would begin right here in this section. But we could see that we have nice contrast though still between this element and this foreground element. And then this element, we have some type here, which is really contrasting well with that. And then we have some color that's already coming out. So just with these few amount of elements, if you're paying attention to contrast, and also I should mention, when it comes to margin and padding and white space, we have something that already looks good. It's very simple, but it looks good. And these are the reasons why. Contrast, size and location, and padding. And if you can get these three things right, you can almost always knock it out of the park. All right, so let's just duplicate this. I don't even know what I'm doing for the logo. That looks kind of cool. We'll just stick with that. All right, so I'll just group these two things. Making pointless logos here. You want to make sure these are kind of lined up. There we go. It's in the center of this area. And then we'll group those up. So now the layers look like, we'll just say logo here. We'll call this background. Just double clicking it to change. All right. So here we go. Looks solid already. A solid starting point because like I said, we're minding core fundamentals when it comes to design and graphic design. All right, let's go ahead and get started on I may end up increasing the size of this slightly, but we'll see. So let's go ahead and add in a navigation here. So we'll take the type tool, and I'm just going to put I'm going to make this caps, so all uppercase. We'll put about us, and I think we'll not make this one bold, and I'll tell you why. This is sort of subjective, but it's also objective in one sense. When you have, say, for instance, on the same line, the same horizontal path, we have we have two sets of type, really. The type that's a part of the logo, and depending on the typography that's based on your word mark, it may be a crazy font. Sometimes it may not even contain a word mark at all. But if there is type here, then you want to create some type of separation, a visual difference between these two type elements. And so one way to do that is, instead of this one, if you have more bold type, you can make this type less bold or just normal in terms of font weight. We can also create a visual separation through decreasing the contrast or changing the color slightly between them. So in our case, maybe we'll just take this down a bit. All right. We can also possibly change the size of the font, and we'll see how that works out as we go forward, which we can do. But once we have this right around here, I have a 61% opacity applied. We can do a repeat grid, and then we'll just drag out. And maybe we'll get, I don't know, like 5. And we want to create separation between these, obviously, but sometimes it's not obvious. When I do these portfolio reviews, sometimes I'll see new designers. They're really sticking stuff together, and that's where they're getting padding and white space and margin, or negative space as it's called, wrong. You really want to give your elements, if we're talking about navigation elements, you want to give them a good amount of room away from each other. And I think what we will do is decrease the size of this slightly. So if I double click into here in one of these and change the size, I'm just going to left click and we'll go down to around 15. That'll be pretty good. There we go. That's pretty solid. So now, when we're talking about alignment, if we're using XD and any of the other modern design tools, we'll see that we have guides that show up. So we can see this one is perfectly centered. Even though it's smaller type, it's centered in line with this type over here, which is what we want. And also, when I'm moving this around, you want to make sure, you want to pay attention to the corner of your container. Generally speaking, you're going to want it to have an equal amount of padding or margin from up here, from the top of this container to the very right of the container. So if you can get it pretty close, that's good. But that's not good. You don't want to do that. All right. I'm not going to really bother with making these unique. I'm just going to leave those up there for now. I'm not going to make. They're all just going to say about us, at least for now. Okay, so now we have our header portion pretty much done, and you could leave it the same color as the background, where there's no separation, and this is subjective. Or if you want, you can take this background container, Control D to duplicate it, and we'll drag it up. And we can create a little bit of a separation between this container up here for the header and the content that will be down here. All right, so we'll just experiment with this. If it's a dark UI theme, then you probably don't want it to contrast too much between this element and this element up here. So you can either make this lighter slightly or darker than this background here. So in our case, I think what we'll do is just select the background, and maybe we will make it slightly lighter, and that's about it. So now we've created this little container of sorts that will house this this content, and give it a little bit more structure. Again, it's still subjective because you don't necessarily have to do that. This could still work just like that. It's just a more simplified version. So when we do that, we're introducing kind of one more element to the design. Again, I think that falls in the line of subjectivity in terms of design choices. 219 people, sweet. All right, by the way, just another note, if anybody does want to have me review their portfolio at the end of this video, send in a super chat and mention your Discord username and submit the link in the Discord server over here. All right, right there, cool. All right, so continuing on, so this example, like I said, is going to be based on a control panel design of sorts. So we're going to have a vertical navigation, a sidebar over here with more links. So all I'll do is just take this and duplicate it, stick it over here. I'll pull this in. This is still a grid container or a repeat grid container here, and I'll go ahead and pull it down, and I'll create like 5 different links here. These ones I will make. Actually, you know what? Before I do this, we'll give these ones icons. So I'm going to right-click and ungroup the grid, and I'm going to go to let's see here, Material IO icons. One second, I'm off screen. So if we go to material.io /tools/icons, we could do a search for some type of generic icon like chart. All right, and let's do outlined only, and we'll just do this what's it called, an insert chart. All right, so choose SVG. Actually, no, selected icon, we'll make it white because it's obviously on a black background. So we'll download this SVG here, and let's see here. I think I downloaded this one earlier. It's on my desktop somewhere. Let me just open this up real quick. Okay, there it is. And what I'll do is I will drag it to the desktop right there, and then just pull it in here. There we go. Oh, that's the black one. What the hell? All right, we'll just change the fill to white. There we go. All right, so we'll have an icon. And the reason I'm choosing to add icons here is because, again, we're talking about separating elements that are otherwise similar. So we have a navigation up here without icons. One way to create separation between these 2 different elements is by, this one could have an icon. That's kind of subjective. You don't have to do that, but it's something I'm choosing to do. So kind of just a subjective preference here. You might make that a little bit smaller. Shift Alt and scale in. All right. And again, notice we're talking about alignment and aligning elements, and also talking about creating, making sure things are consistent. I'm choosing to align this element, this icon, right here where this little combination, or the symbol of the logo starts as well. So we have an equal amount of distance and padding and white space between the outside of the element. We'll make it start right here. Normally you might have some type of like a menu label. I'm just going to leave that out in this case. And then I'm going to take both of these and I'm going to repeat grid, pull down about 5, and really separate these out. This is too small. There's not enough white space between these elements, and that's almost an objective sort of thing. We really want to make them stick out from each other. And we could even create a little bit more white space. For instance, if we, instead of aligning this to where the icons start with the symbol, we could push it over here and make it start maybe right around here with the beginning of the word mark. And that will even give it a little bit more room. I kind of like sticking right around here though, because it's a little bit too much space on this side. All right, so I am going to change these real quick. So these labels. I'm just going to put we'll just put settings. I don't know, web stats. No, statistics. We'll do another one for accounts. And this is cut off. You'll see. We'll fix that in a second. I don't know, webhooks or something. And then we'll do permissions. All right, and then we'll get out of there, go back and extend this out a bit right there. And then we'll ungroup the grid. Maybe we won't. Maybe I'll spread these out a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to move this a little bit. Maybe where settings, these links start right here to the left of the word mark. I think that'll be a good area. All right, now let's also, by the way, I'm not going to bother changing these icons. They're all going to be the same icons. All right. So now what I want to do is kind of create a container for like which page is currently selected for this UI theme that we're designing. So we'll take the this tool here, the rectangle tool, and we'll go out. Let's get our layers so I can position it underneath here. We'll get rid of the border and we'll take this down. So we're entering the realm of subjectivity and objectivity. What color should this be for the page that's currently selected? Well, we could go this route where the currently selected page is just, you know, a little bit lighter, or you could do a little bit darker than the current background. You could do that. Or if you really want it to stand out, you could take the opacity up and use the accent color. And then if you do that, you're going to want to ungroup. And then, because right now if we're talking about contrast, you always have to remember these things. There's not enough contrast really with this little statistics. It's a thin font weight already, and it being white, it kind of gets lost, especially if we go at 100%. You could still see it, but still it would be worth having more contrast. So if that were the case, then we could take this and probably, you know, take the opacity up quite a bit and do something like that, and or make it bold. I think that's taken up too much, a little bit too much importance. So what I would do is go back and just stick with this approach right here, and then make this particular type. Let's get out of here and ungroup that again, and we'll make this particular type 100% white, and that's enough for me, in my opinion. Also, you want to make sure that this is pretty much even. All right, right around there looks good. All right, so far we have, this may probably be worth coming out a little bit further here, just to assume if there's other content or like an avatar, a user avatar, it would be, you'd have more room for this sidebar right here. Also, you could determine or decide to, if you wanted to, take this whole sidebar and wrap it in its own container with a background. Or you could just leave it like this. Again, kind of subjective. But if you do it, there are objective design principles that you would have to follow. So what I'm talking about is, like, say, let's duplicate this. We'll take the one at the bottom. We'll extend it down all the way. That actually almost worked. That worked out pretty solid. I didn't really even have to change the color. But what I'm talking about that is objective is color and contrast. So you want to get the contrast and color correct. So for instance, if we did this, I obviously wouldn't be a fan of that. Then you would have to change all this stuff, and you would kind of be deviating from the dark theme, which is what we want, something that's predominantly dark. So if you do it, stick to something. If you want to have a container here, which is kind of an objective preference or subjective preference, then I would kind of stick to making it, sticking with the theme of being it dark, or if you're doing a light theme, keeping it light, and making it stick it out enough so that you can see a separation of color, but not too much. All right, Me, I'm leaving it out. I'm just going to leave it like that. It'll be more simple. Okay, so now we have the sidebar area done. And by the way, I may want to take these real quick. I'm going to right click and ungroup them. And then just take the type itself, bring the opacity down just a tad bit. So it creates even more separation between the currently selected element and the ones that aren't. All right, so for this, we're going to assume we're at a statistics page or a stats for like this dashboard design that we're doing. And so over here, we'll have our first piece of content, and we're going to say this is probably the most important element or piece of our content because we're sticking it up in the very upper left corner of our main element. So we'll put in 1,843 users. Now, of course, this is being that we're determining this is part of the most important piece of information that's relevant to whoever's going to be using this. We're going to make this large and really stand out. We're going to have high contrast right here, and we're also going to have a good amount of white space between the container that contains all of this information that we're about to design and up here with the header and the sidebar. So we have a good amount of white space. You know, you don't want to do this. That's going to completely throw it off and just make it look like garbage. You want it to have room to breathe, easy to see, easy for people to use. All right. I'll duplicate this, and we'll have kind of like an area that's of less importance underneath it that maybe expands upon more of the stats that are associated with the users that are gained. So I'll just put something like in 38 gained in the last 48 hours. So when we're talking about visual hierarchy, and this is something I always talk about, we want to create separation using all the things I've been talking about in terms of color and contrast, size and location to create that separation. So this right here, that does not work. Don't do this. So size, that's the first thing I'm going to change. We'll scale this down, and you can already see we created a great amount of separation visually between these two elements. And I would say that's not enough though, because it's still 100% white. We can create more or a second degree of separation by taking the opacity in, for instance, and making it not stick out quite as much, but you still want it to be easily for people to read. So you don't want to go all the way down like this. I mean, it's just too damn hard to read. It doesn't make sense. But you want to have it up maybe right around 34% if you're using the white color. And we'll move it just slightly in. Again, proximity is also important. So if you're moving it up like this, no, you want to have your elements need to breathe, so you need to bring them down. But again, not too far. Like that, that's too far. Right there is pretty much a good medium, give or take 10 pixels or whatever. All right, so down here we'll say we want to have some like maybe like some sort of chart, a visual chart of sorts that will kind of show the amount of users gained per day or whatever. And you could take this in a million ways. You could take it in the sense of having like a line chart or a bar chart, whatever. We're going to do a bar chart though. It's quick and easy to do. So we'll start off just with a rectangle tool. Let me pause for a brief second to check that I'm still actually live and nothing horrible has gone wrong in this live stream. All right, we have 200 people. All right, nobody's saying my mic is off or anything. That's good. Okay, cool. Let me check the Discord real quick. Where are we at? All right, nobody's talking. Cool. All right, so now we'll take the we'll get rid of the border. And we'll take a fill. We'll just take this down quite a bit just for now. And you'll see what I'm doing in a second. I think a height of right around there is probably pretty good. Make this a little bit thicker. And then we'll do a repeat grid and pull it to the right. We'll decrease the space between these a little bit, and we'll go out. Well, I'll say right around here. All right. And then what we'll do is I'm going to, we'll duplicate this. I'm going to get to our layers, and I'll take the bottom one. I'm going to hide the top one first, and I'm going to take the opacity down. Oh, not that one. This one. We'll take the opacity down even further. And you'll see what I'm doing here in a second. This might be a little bit confusing. So now we have this top one, and we're going to drag this one in a little bit. All right, and then I'm going to ungroup the grid. And then I'm just going to real quickly take a few of these. So I held held shift and selected just 3 of them, brought them down. I'm just doing a few randomly so I can speed up the process. So I can just create, a little bit of a difference here in terms of the height of this fake data that we're displaying. And then the very last one, we'll use our accent color because we haven't used it much at all. So things are looking quite monotone. We'll put it like right there. And then we'll make the background, first we'll increase this. Something like that. I think maybe what I will also do is take this background one, and we will ungroup it. And I'm just going to select these ones right here. Delete them. These ones over here, I'm going to make, these are for like future days of the month that haven't yet occurred, so I'll bring them down quite a bit. This one, I have to delete the other one behind it. There we go. All right. So now this accent color really helped bring it about, because if it was typical like one of these other ones, things are looking quite monotone. So you want to bring in that accent color where it makes sense, where it's relevant. So, again, we'll use our, let's see here. We'll take our accent color. And then also we can maybe make another design choice. And when you're designing like a chart, for instance, you need to make sure you're conferring with the developer, or assuming you're not doing the actual chart or whatever, and figure out which chart API or library or script that you're going to be using, so you know what is possible in terms of design. For me, I'm just assuming anything, so I'm going to do what I want. So I'll duplicate this, bring this up here. Maybe this is where we're going to show an actual number, like the amount of users gained for this particular day. And we'll separate it visually. You can go white or darker. I'm just going to go slightly lighter and probably just put in a number right here. And we'll put in like 38, assuming 38 users are gained in that particular day. And let's also make it bold. It's a single type element. It's probably important that it sticks out quite a bit. All right, and then you could have the intention that, when the user hovers over these, it'll change into this representation or whatever. But just for now, that's pretty good as is. All right. So now let's add another element, maybe some 3 panels down here in this area that will contain more relevant information. All right, so when we have like a dashboard, usually there's a lot of data that you're dealing with, and it helps to separate that data visually by putting them in a container of sorts. And so what we'll do is we'll take in a rectangle right here, and our intention is to have 3 of these. So a real quick way of making sure that we have the length correct is to use a repeat grid, pull out to around 3, and then right around there looks pretty good in terms of just the size of these. So that'll work. So I can ungroup this real quick and just delete these other 2. And because, again, once we're dealing with a dark theme, we probably don't want this containers to have too much contrast and deviate from the darkness too much. So I'll take the opacity of this one, and we could even go the opposite direction actually. Get rid of this stroke here. If we get our background color and we go slightly darker, we could create just a little bit of separation there to where we can see, maybe just a tad bit darker. Not too much though. So we can see that there's definitely a container here, and it does create an element of visual separation between other things. So whatever's inside of here is going to have, its own clearly defined location in the UI. So now we can put in maybe like a label, a real small label. We'll put in money earned or something. Let's make this, we're not going to make this bold, this one. I'm just going to choose regular and come down pretty small. We'll say around 11 for the size. And also, the label isn't entirely important. So what we'll do is even, we also made it small. It's not bold. We can take down the opacity right around there just so that we could still see it. But it's definitely an afterthought, the label itself. What will be important here is the actual money earned. I don't know, maybe throughout the last 30 days. So I'll take this up here, duplicate it. We'll right click, arrange, and bring to front. Right there. Scale it down. And then I'll just put in some made up value like 431. Made, and we'll put it right around here. All right, let's look at the whole thing so far. It's looking pretty solid in my opinion. Of course it would. I designed it, so I might be biased. And then what's underneath here, you can have another type of chart. So for instance, we could just do a quick kind of like little preview chart. The idea is like they would be able to click on this and get to a separate page. Maybe that's just about only the money earned. And so this one could be just a line chart. So I'm going to hold shift and just go out a bunch of times. I'm not putting much thought into this. We'll see, like right there. All right, that's good. And then we'll use our accent color again. So that's another area that we can use our accent color. And we'll really thicken this up. Maybe change the end caps here. Yeah, something like that. If they go outside of the bounds, I'm not too concerned. Something like that. All right, and then we can also maybe do a little icon or a sphere to show maybe a currently selected day or something where the user hovers over it. And we can take the fill and make it the current background color, and then take the stroke and make it our accent color. And we'll match up the width right here for the stroke. And then we'll put maybe for this particular day they made I don't know, $32 or something. And then we'll scale it down. And we'll give it its own container. Again, kind of a subjective design choice to wrap it in a container. So I'll take the rectangle tool and no border. Let's put this underneath the label itself. And we could use the same color, our accent color, if we want. We can bring these in a little bit. Center this up, maybe make it bold. It's quite small right now. You probably don't want to go smaller than 9, that's for sure. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, this is looking like, I'm not sure if I like that. Maybe just get rid of that element because it's already a lot is happening here, and we can just probably put it right there. Maybe make this 10 for the size. All right. All right, that looks pretty decent. We could even create a little bit more separation. Like, let's take this this line and duplicate it, and we're going to lock the one on top of it, and then we'll see if I can do this correctly. The pen tool in XD can be a little bit tricky at times. Get rid of the border. Let's also hide this one up here. All right, no, it's just the right. Sorry, I'm selecting the wrong one. Let's click on this. I'm gonna hold Shift to make perfect angles here. I'm gonna get rid of the border and give it a fill and drastically reduce the fill, and then we'll bring back. Oh, that's because the border went away. There we go. So now we kind of created a kind of like a separation between these elements here. I'm going to increase this just a bit. Maybe right around there. You could probably add like little labels. Oh, I forgot to do that over here. We'll do that real quick, by the way. I'll take this element. I'm going to stick it right here to create labels. Maybe something like August, I don't know, 8th or whatever. And then probably increase this to 12. Repeat grid tool. Pull this out. That way we have much more of an appropriate chart over here. You could do you know, the vertical labels if you wanted to as well. And I am going to extend this artboard just a bit so we can have a little bit more to design with, to work with. A little bit more room. So we'll take this, separate it a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you get the point. And so now what we could do is, let me lock this real quick. There we go. Now I just select this stuff right here, and I will repeat it all the way out, right around there. And there we go. I'm not going to really bother with customizing the second and third box because I think at this point it's pretty solid, and I've done what I wanted to do in terms of talking about all those important design elements as it pertains to designing something that's more of a dark UI theme, and also about, you know, color and contrast, size, scale, and trying to get a single cohesive thing. One more thing I will do, because I did this originally when I prepared this project. I put an inbox here. All right, and I wanted to get some of our accent color up here so we can do like a new messages thing. Let me take this dude right here. I'm just going to duplicate those, pull them up. Maybe add a, let me see here, a border, 2 pixels, make that the same color. And then obviously this doesn't make sense, so we'll put in like, I don't know, they have 5 messages. We could also make this a little bit taller, so Alt and scale up, a little thinner, put that in the middle. There we go. Awesome. All right, so what I'll do is I'll try to remember to save this, and if anybody wants to use it, they can. But I'm going to consider that pretty much complete. So now I'll check out the chat and answer any questions. Nobody wants a portfolio review, so that's fine. All right. So yeah, tomorrow I will be doing a one of the what do you call it? The regular Q&A reveal plus the portfolio review. So I'll go ahead real quickly and just look at some of the chats here, see if there's any questions or whatever. Let me bring out done. Let me get out the YouTube thing here. Toggle. There we go. There's a lot of chats going on here, so that's one of the unfortunate things about YouTube chat. It'll cut them off at a certain point, so I don't get to see all your questions. Yes, I did make it look very easy, and of course that just comes with time. Like right now, I'm going crazy learning more complex guitar stuff, and some of the dudes I'm watching on YouTube who are teaching, they make everything look so easy. But you know, again, you get there just by practicing a ton. Does Adobe XD generate code like HTML, CSS? No, it doesn't. It just will allow you to export assets like SVGs. I'm just kind of going through these real quickly just to see. There's a lot of text here. I'm not really keen on reading every single thing, especially when I'm doing this live here. All right. I think we're going to probably end it right here. We're already at how long? 51 minutes. And I did what I wanted to do. What files you need to send to the client at the end if he wants a graphic design or graphic design plus coding. It all depends, you know, who's taking care of the HTML and CSS process. If you're designing for a client, provide them with everything. Obviously, if you have your Adobe XD files, yeah. What workflow do you normally follow? First HTML and then CSS. Well, first if we're talking about UI design, I'm designing everything here in Adobe XD. And then I confer back and forth with the client. XD specifically allows you to share your prototypes, and they're able to use an interactive version of your, especially if you have multiple artboards, obviously. And they can leave comments here in Adobe XD on your specific project, which is stored on the Creative Cloud. Once we get to that and we're happy with the actual aesthetics and how everything's going to work, and then I start doing HTML and CSS, and sometimes I'll work back and forth between both of them until I'm satisfied with it. Let's go back to this thing right here. Should I learn React or Angular? Well, you can learn both and just try with one. It seems like React is probably a little bit more popular, although I'm much better in Angular, so I have more Angular content on my channel. But that's going to be one of those things. I'm not going to sit there and say one's better than the other. Yeah, Bart, that's one of the things about governments. They're always stuck in the past because of bureaucracy, and they can't really move forward. They're also technically a monopoly. They're a territorial monopoly, and when it comes to governments, they're always just stuck in the past because they lack competition in and of themselves. And I hate government. So any ideas of how I can get them to 2018? I'm not really sure. I've never worked with the government, so I'm not sure what would be effective outside of just showing them, you know, what is modern, and then showing them their version of something, which is probably always garbage, and then showing, you know, what the hive mind of the free market is able to produce. Can I freelance with HTML, CSS, and a bit of JavaScript and jQuery? Where could I go for a good start? Yeah, you can definitely handle, I mean, HTML, CSS, and especially in this day and age, understanding JavaScript, you know, that'll get you, you're pretty much a front-end designer / developer, so you can definitely, you know, make money just doing those three things. It helps to be able to be a designer as well and have a good eye for design, because those two things kind of go hand in hand, being able to design the aesthetics but also create them in terms of coding. And where could you go for a good start? I just did a video a couple weeks ago about making money as a freelancer. I suggest you watch that. Would it be possible for a programmer to build a website completely as the prototype you have built, or is it a struggle? Well, they would simply have to understand HTML and CSS properties quite well, and then outside of that, there's no issue with getting it looking exactly like this, as long as the chart software or whatever that is used or the script is capable of, you know, providing charts that are customizable in this particular aesthetic. Yeah, but outside of this, this is all achievable strictly in HTML and CSS. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worth designing it at all. So, yeah. Opinions on Stefan Molyneux. That's funny. I've heard. I first knew about Stefan Molyneux. Let's see here, like 2011 or 2012. And he was very different than he is today. I like more of his earlier stuff as opposed to the later stuff. Ionic or Flutter? What is your choice? I haven't actually touched Flutter yet because it doesn't use web technologies, and that's my strength. But I have messed with Ionic, and I do like Ionic a lot as it uses Angular. All right, guys. Yeah, we're just about at an hour. So, yeah. I'm planning on doing the live stream tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m., where I do the questions and the answer reveals along with the portfolio review. Let me check real quickly here. Any alternative for XD for Linux? No clue. I have no clue about that one. So, yeah, I'm sorry about that. All right. So that looks pretty good. Yeah. See you guys here tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for the question and answer reveal and portfolio review. All right, guys. See you